to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Minority Report. We saw this production at Nottingham Playhouse on the 29th of February 2024. Minority Report sees award-winning director Max Webster reunited with the producers of the globally successful stage version of Life of Pi. Written by David Haig and based on the short story by Philip K. Dick, this is a Nottingham Playhouse, Birmingham Rep and Lyric Hammersmith Theatre co-production. So Stephen, what's it all about?
In 2050, neuroscientist Dame Julia Anderton is about to launch the next phase of her pioneering pre-crime program, detaining people for crimes before they are committed. But when Julia is accused of pre-murder, she's in a race against time to save herself from her own system.
But first, our post-show opinion!
This is definitely a show for the majority, not the minority.
A great production, very appropriate for today's times.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene!
So let's talk the Minority Report, Richard. Here we are back at Nottingham Playhouse, I should say. And this was quite and this one was quite an interesting one, because out of the productions they've got coming up, this one interested me the most. I don't know about you, because of everything that's going on in the world right now about monitoring and the hate bills and whatever. The thought crimes is very much on that wavelength, isn't it, right
completely.
now?
And also to see how they condensed a film onto a stage was actually quite intriguing, I think, because it's so futuristic and it's in a certain place and time almost. It's very interesting to see how you adapt that to create the actual same feeling on stage, and I think that was we didn't know which way it was going to go, really. I think
because obviously in the film you've got the special effects and stuff you can do quite easily, I'd imagine, and
you can also go to the places and the spaces that each scene's set, rather than it relying on small pieces of staging or scenery to actually take you there. I think that's the other thing as well. Film's very different in medium than it is the actual the stage.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if there was any limitations to the special effects that they used on the stage. So, without any further ado, let's set the scene, Richard.
Agadoo.
Shake those pineapple trees, or whatever the lyrics are. Right, go on then, set the scene.
So I was just thinking that you've not been to many children's parties.
Well, not
You
now.
didn't shake pineapple and go up the tree then.
That was a very long time. I'm talking about my youth here. I think I'll be very odd if I, as a 42-year-old man, going around children's parties when I haven't got any kids.
But Stephen, we're talking about the future, not the past. Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go. So when we walked into the auditorium, we were presented with a screen that was basically showing almost... it was basically a video wall projection of... the British?
It was like a crest.
Yeah,
like
it was like the police
security crest.
Yeah, but you see, what for me, it was almost like you were walking into a very large, big sort of office block in London, where the main reception area had almost big video walls and things projecting the actual logos of the building, rather than the traditional sense where there'd just be one that was made. This was more looked like a futuristic film where you were walking into an imagined view of what it would look like, say 100 years later in the future, where there was
Well, no, what it was a presentation. So it was like a PowerPoint screen of the crest, because the woman came forward to talk about, because she addressed the audience as though we were in like 2050, about her new thought crime procedure thing. So I think it was... Sorry, should I have set the scene?
You can set the scene if you want.
No.
No, I think what I was trying to get at is it's more like you felt like you were in somewhere official and you were there to learn something that's never been seen before, or it was the way to. It was
Yeah, it was a talk. It was a presentation.
proper. Yeah. Well, almost. I think what I'm trying to say is it's more like you were like the Security Council or something of the country, rather than just a presentation in a small meeting room. It felt more like a big auditorium as a big arena to hear that speech more than anything. So
yeah,
it felt official.
Yeah. Along the storyline, panels would move away and then we'll be presented by an office. One of those sets was an office with a swivel chair. To be fair, there was quite a few scenes, weren't there?
Yeah, there were.
Locations.
Yeah, and it was cleverly done with, really, it was quite a minimal stage because you didn't really know what was going to come from it. It was quite a technical stage, but they used screens to divide the space up, so you brought the sort of the office space was half in the room and half on the stage, but there were screens that came down behind it, so it pulled the everything forward.
It also gave a sense of depth as well with pillars, with the tabs coming down, having like office tower,
yeah. It felt very like a futuristic tower block, didn't it? And
yeah.
But it was like in a way, the screens that we saw with the projections on at the start, they really almost felt like it was a stage that was opening up to different scenes rather than you seeing the full stage at the start. It was closing off that stage until each scene happened. So you
I think that is because this is about the lead character's journey.
Yeah,
we're following her. So because it's not set in one time or place, the set would evolve and change from where she's having to run and go to, which
it very much supported her journey through
the production.
Yeah, it did.
I said that right. A bit funny there.
Production.
So that's a sort of a set, and a few other bits in the set. They had this new futuristic car or taxi service which they used, which they created, which was quite interesting as well.
It was like an autonomous. Yeah. Sorry, it was like an AI car that just travelled around in its own, no drive. It was a driverless car, wasn't it?
Yeah. So very taking aspects of futuristic films and stuff like that as well,
and also clever use of an assistant for like an Alexa or a Siri, but that was blended between real acting and video projection. So it worked really well in that respect for taking you to that futuristic level, really.
And there was another scene where they were trying to escape from the office tower block or her home, and she managed to get through the back doors or whatever, and they had sets coming down where she was just like walking above the stage slightly, where she had to get from one side to the other near like the extractor fans and stuff like that.
The air conditioning sort of units and things like that.
So that broke up a little bit more of the space, and then later on, when she managed to escape the automated vehicle, she found a way in some sort of like whole caravan-esque type placement there as well, where I suppose the rebels or the renegade. Yeah,
it was like the underground world, really, of people. We're
going to say Wombles then.
Well, yeah,
the Wombles,
underground wobbling free.
Yeah, the Wombles of the 2050s.
Yeah, I think it was to show that even in this time of complete control by the authorities, there was still that rebellious group that hid underground and went off the radar, really, and it gave you I suppose the other thing was the staging was it looked very futuristic. There was a lot of fluorescent lights and a lot of sort of LED work, but also there was the perception that some grids there was like a gridded ceiling all the way to the back of the stage.
Yeah.
And the front part of that gridded ceiling did actually come all the way to the floor, which had the air conditioning units on as one screen, but then that screen would lift, and behind that was this underground world. So you were transported to different spaces and places,
Yeah, it looked very much like the Matrix as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
And they played well with the types of lights as well. It was very much your greens or your purples and silvers.
Yeah, it was all kept in that futuristic world that you'd see that you'd associate with futuristic things in film and things like that.
Yeah,
now,
I mean they've typically chosen to adhere to, I suppose, a typical futuristic palette colour.
Yeah, exactly. It's like quite electric colours, like almost like it was all
neon-esque. Yeah, I mean, 2015 might come round and we might be having like an 80s sort of a vibe going on.
Exactly.
It might be completely different. It might all be yellows and browns or something.
Yeah, definitely.
But it did look really cool and
it did.
And expensive looking. Actually.
Yeah, it did. It looked polished and it looked right for this production really, and it fit with. I mean, I always talk about what you expect to see and what you see on stage, and everything from the poster right the way through to when you walk in, you felt the quality of it. You could feel that put a lot of work into that side of it as well.
Do you mean the artistic concept all the way through from programmes, posters?
Yeah, programmes, posters, and the logos used on the stage, the work that's gone into the graphics of the actual projections, but also the TV work, which we'll talk about in a bit. But there was a lot of those sort of things within this production that all felt real. Yeah,
all the synergy was together. Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about the sets. Were you aware that this was a one-act play?
No, not at all.
No, I wasn't. I was assuming it was going to be a 2-act play.
And I wasn't even aware all the way through it until we we're getting towards the end of the production and
exactly.
We've not stopped yet.
I mean, from a playwriting point of view, you sort of know when all the plot points and plot ties are starting to be knitted back together and be resolved. And I'm thinking, unless there's going to be some kind of huge plot twist here, I have a feeling we're done.
Yeah, exactly.
And but because it was a fast-moving production, I didn't feel like as a one-act play it was so laborious.
No,
I actually felt it was really entertaining, really gripping, and I thought we must be near the interval now, surely to God.
Yeah, exactly.
But then with everything being tied up, I thought I don't think it is,
No,
and it never did.
And I actually, in a way, am glad that I didn't really know, and I was sat there quite almost fixed, but then going, actually, we're just going to sit in this world for this hour and a half, and it worked really well.
Yeah,
because of the production it was. I think we'd struggle to break it anywhere.
I agree. You wouldn't be able to. Well, even if you did break it, you lose the momentum.
You wouldn't have got the momentum back to the level that it was. And also for the actors as well.
Well, exactly. Yes. It would have been a hard sell, I suppose, again to have to come back into it and pick up where you left off.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think once you've got people gripped and entertained, especially with it being an all-moving sort of fast production, plus there was dancing involved as well,
exactly.
and stylistic movements, which kept the pace going, so there wasn't huge set changes that slowed stuff down either. You were very distracted, so everything moved along at such a lick that it was.
It didn't stop. It would have really changed the production if we'd have stopped it, I feel.
And I think when it did end, it ended on a high. It was enough. It didn't need any more adding to it either.
No, not at all. And I think the thing is, for me, it was futuristic in its production, but from a technical point of view, I knew that there was a lot of things happening that were manually done.
Yeah.
To make it look professional, like futuristic.
Yeah.
But if those movements or that hadn't happened as fast paced or as smooth as it did, it would have lost it as well. So I think it was a very good decision to create this space with the pace they used and all the technical aspects to actually put this together to keep.
Is there an example you can give?
Well, it was like the tabs that they brought in that were made as big metal almost grills that were brought in and out and changed the space and shrunk it and brought it backwards and just moved it around. All those were done manually, but if they didn't have the pace and the movement they did, it would have you're not going to look, because you've got to almost emulate your classic Star Wars door opening and shutting, and it needs to feel futuristic rather than somebody's just pulling the ropes in the background, or the same as pushing set pieces on or things like that. It all needs to feel choreographed, so it all works, because this production centres around one character. Really, everything has to happen around that character. You've got to have that. Everybody's got to be on it, and I think that's what was happening. We saw quite a lot of that. It would have lost something if people didn't enter when they needed to, or it would have lost pace if there was not the elements all there together, working synchronised.
So how do we feel about the writing of this play by David Haig?
I thought it was written really well, and I think he wrote in a way where you got a punch in the face almost, where there was so much confidence from, is it Julia's character?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, from Julia, when she walks out on stage, and you do feel like you're in a TED Talk. You felt like you were at the level of, actually, she captivated you from the minute she walked on stage all the way through the performance, really.
Yeah.
And that can only be enhanced by the writing. You knew straight away what the production was about, but it wasn't. I didn't feel like I was spoon-fed.
No, I think it was really clever use of getting the plot points and the characters' wants at the very early beginning of the play by using, say, gimmick of a conference.
Yeah, but you didn't feel bombarded. You felt like you were with it. You felt like you were
getting across. You were given the information in a way that's acceptable, rather than it just being like, get on the soapbox and this, that, and the other. So that's a clever, and it moves the story along, because then you know that there's a reason why she set up this whole pre-crime bill or whatever.
Exactly.
Because everything gets set up for a good reason, but then the story, the actual ethical story underneath, is basically, is it wise, or by you saying this to get people that commit crimes to stop them doing it?
Yeah, exactly.
If you could potentially be one yourself, would you then, if it's that pre-crime thing?
And I also think from a writing perspective, it was very clever to write the character David within this, because the AI Siri character within it was almost like Julia's conscience or reminder for some of the facts that she maybe not got in because David said them, or she'd do some bits where David would say, well, you knew that, or you did that last time, or and it gave you more information without it feeling like you were being given information on a leaflet. It was done in such a way that it was just dipped in or dripped in to within the conversation.
Yeah, it's like a news bulletin.
Yeah.
Or something, just so the audience are now aware of this new information that the character already knew.
Yeah, and it's almost like it felt it felt nice and clear, rather than you're having a long monologue or a speech to explain that. It was just enough to bring you to go, oh, that's another thing to consider, or that's another thing to take on board. And it was like that helped a lot, just to have that different voice, and there was humour intertwined in that as well. There was, it was that friend that would, even in all the sort of this world that everything's almost monitored, that was almost an unmonitored conversation with an AI person that was just there for Julia, really.
Yeah.
And it was also backed up with the projections. So things she was saying, it was being described in images or pictures or things that just fueled that backstory that gave you instantly where you were, what was going off. And also, for me, it expanded the world larger than the stage. You felt like you were in a bigger space.
Yeah. What do you think about the plot? Because even though we've got the overall theme of what the message is, we haven't actually talked about the plot.
No.
The real plot of this one.
The deep plot.
The deep plot. And it's quite funny, really, because when you watch this, you do obviously think of the wider picture and the message that is portrayed, but the plot actually is sort of a whodunit in a way.
Yeah, and it's also identifies flaws in the actual system that's been created by Julia to spot somebody who would have a thought of murdering somebody before the murder happens, what
I'm going to say is that it's a whodunit, but then it teases you on a little bit, and then exactly. She knows who she's going to kill. It's a partner.
Yeah,
but then it's inconceivable to her to think that I could never do you. So clearly, the system is flawed.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other person thinks, well, the system can't be flawed because I created it.
Exactly.
So therefore, you've got a quandary there where who's right or who's wrong. Only one of them possibilities could be right.
But then your next layer on top of that is this is now out in the public domain. The whole population is part of this now, and to save face, we can't say that it doesn't work or it's flawed, because actually it's actually
it's like
embedded into society. You know,
it's like capital punishment, hanging people because they killed someone.
Exactly.
Actually, the evidence is there that actually they didn't.
Yeah.
Whoops, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, never mind.
Never mind. It doesn't matter.
Won't chop people's heads off again.
And I think that's the, you know, it's almost history repeating itself, that, you know, by putting in something so severe to actually control the nation, it's actually, you know, they're stuck because the train's running. They can't put the brakes on the train because everybody that follows them won't believe them. And it's about so much more than just that one part of the policing of the nation, you know.
Yeah. How did you feel about their direction? Max Webster directed this production, so how do you think this went?
I thought it was directed with a definite focus on keeping an audience engaged, and I think that was key with this. It's key. I think it was directed well, and there was a clear vision. You could tell that there was a clear vision from that director that knew that they didn't want it to divert too far from the constant storyline, rather than getting too lost in the preamble of other things. It was, you know, it was done. I just think it was done well. I think it, you know.
Also, I'd add to highlight the comedy moments and draw some of those out as well.
Yeah, exactly.
When you do productions that can be quite heavy, or you're really passionate about getting a message across, or whatever, sometimes you can go about it and forget that the audience sometimes needs to breathe, needs to laugh, and needs to connect and find some sort of something to relate to.
Yeah, totally.
And so with the character of David popping out just as and when and being quite funny, that sort of took a bit of the edge off.
Yeah, exactly.
Of some of the intense, fast-paced scenes.
And I think it also, as well as that, it shows that Julia was human.
Yeah.
And there was human elements to it wasn't just a highly technical production where it was futuristic and it was stuck in this really weird world that didn't feel close to our own. I think it's very easy to lose sight of the future is only going to be the future with what we do now tacked on. You know, there's still going to be a human element, so humour is still going to be there. There's still going to be elements of banter to put it, you know, in a way, you know, our brains aren't programmed to be on, off, or yes, no. We are going to challenge or have a moment where a person would still challenge something even though they're told they can't do something. And I think it's very key to this production to show that person will still challenge, and that's what you saw with Julia. You know, she did toy, and you could see the elements and times where she got confused. She got, you know, she had to think differently, and I don't think that helps put this across sometimes, because it could have been a completely different production if you'd have done it differently. And I think as well...
Well, it would have been.
Well, yeah. I think there was, it was cleverly put together with elements of dance from some of the supporting cast that helped you understand that there was movement on the stage, and that there was time passing, and that things were happening. They didn't even have to use words, and I think that was the thing where even when Julia wasn't on stage, you saw somebody got caught by the pre-murder police, the pre-murder tests or whatever, and you could feel the pain of somebody actually being caught out and trapped. And I think that reinforced her thought processes when you saw it happening.
It also allowed the audience to see the repercussions of what
exactly
could happen or is happening
on a
day-to-day basis to the normal people.
And also what it showed was that once this person had been found out and the lights were closing in on, which we'll talk about in the sort of technical side of it, but you felt like the lights were singling this person out, and everybody got back to their normal duties. Yeah. It was like they're now dead to them. Yeah. And it felt very much like that's how the population had been programmed to just shut away from that person now, because they're dead to them. They're even if they're related, even if they're family, they're just a wrong un. That's it, done. Yeah. They've gone, disappeared out your life. Yeah. And it's actually quite shocking to see that, because that it's not far from the truth. When people get we talk of other countries, if somebody's face doesn't fit, or you don't believe what somebody else believes, they can just they can disappear. And it's very...
You don't even have to go far from another country. It's in this country as well now.
But I think that's how the direction really helped this, by it didn't shy away from that.
Yeah, and I thought it was quite interesting when you brought up the dancers as well.
Yeah.
About the passage of time.
Yeah,
because there's quite a few instances where they did move about. Were they stealing stuff or something? Or just moving about within the rain? Or
it was on the rain, and they were just moving through to show, like, walking through a busy street. And it was the same, I think there was like 6 dancers, but it was the same people. But the way they kept moving and changing direction, you felt like it was so much more busier and so much more like... And it was the underworld people travelling through that you felt like they were travelling, didn't you?
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to discuss about the direction of this?
I suppose
you don't have to, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I mean, for me, I talked about the dancers as passing time, but I think
they weren't just passing time.
No,
I meant to reference them as
exactly.
A clever way of getting all those interspersable little scenes that you needed to evolve the story and move things along.
I think one thing I'd say is it was making use of those extra characters to where generally they were unvoiced parts. So a lot of these extra characters on stage were playing the population, the public, the extra people in the office world, the extra people in all the extra characters all felt right and real for each scene. And I think that was, I mean, my God, some of the people on stage, they literally walked off stage, they put a different costume on and were straight back on. And for me, just to make sure that the core characters moved into another place or another world, you could tell they were running off stage, coming back on with so much confidence and just got on with it, that it was just choreographed in such a way that you couldn't, the pace was never stopped really. And I think that is a director showing their worth really, I think, because it would have been a directing nightmare to try and work out who went on where, when, what, why, when, and
also with the limitations or not limitations of the set,
exactly,
and how that's going to look. Will it work?
Yeah, exactly.
And the technical side of things, can they actually achieve this?
Because for me, I always think it's not just about will it work once; it's got to work every night, and it's got to have that same level every night. So you've got to...
I always ask myself every night, will it work?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm always disappointed.
Yeah, but also can the cast adapt to something going wrong or make it still look flawless, because we don't know what's gone wrong in that night. There might have been something that was a little bit off to them, but they've just made it. They just carried it so well,
Yeah.
Because a lot of this production was done with an empty stage, really.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger scenes.
What I'd say is this production is heavily reliant upon the technical side of the show.
Totally.
So the struggle for the actors, if anything was to go wrong,
Totally.
I wouldn't like to be an actor.
No, exactly.
On this, just to try and get out of things if things don't come down right, or things aren't moving, or things aren't switched on.
Because each scene is so specific to what's happening that it would matter.
Yeah, you'd look like egg on your face constantly.
Totally.
Otherwise,
yeah.
And it could potentially get bad reviews if not done right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're
here for the drama.
So, as I talked previously in the other section about the actors having egg on their faces if anything was to go wrong, when we saw it at Nottingham Playhouse, everything went right.
Yeah.
The actors were all on top form, even down, from the lead herself, Jodie McNee as Julia, down to the additional cast. They all played their part extremely, extremely well. This was a slick production, and it really
was.
Strong performances all the way through. There wasn't any weak links there whatsoever. It never felt like anybody dropped a line, missed a beat, or anything. They were all on cue all the time.
You could tell they were all supporting each other as well.
Absolutely.
And it did feel like that as well.
I think I don't know if it would be the difficult, but for me, as an audience viewer, I thought the actor who might have had a bit of an issue would have been Tanvi Virmani, who played David, simply because she had to wait around and she had to hit her cue straight away. So if the light came on and she had to stand up to be this Siri, her entrances were very much quick fired. Really, in a blink, she was there.
They were.
So she had to stand up really quickly to hit her mark in a flash of a light.
Yeah.
And I think that must be difficult to play.
And also her
everyone else
exits
who
as
can
well.
walk in.
Her exits were the same.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, entrance and exits.
But even on her exits, that's still a mark to get off, because the light goes off as well.
Yeah.
And she hides in the most strangest of locations, behind desks and in the cupboards and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So to be in a cupboard, but to know you've got to hit your mark at the same time as the light hits you.
Yeah, exactly.
That takes a lot. It really does. I'd imagine.
It really does. To give you that illusion that is part of that performance. And I think, because also there was times when she was linked to projections. So you 1 minute see projections, the next minute she'd appear in real life. And it all those moments that would, any lag or any slowdown would have really affected it.
And when she was in the caravan, there was actually an office chair in front of a desk, and there was monitors on it.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't expecting her to turn up there at all, but bang, she did. But she came up from the chair.
Yeah, exactly, behind it, and you wouldn't even know.
And it was like, how the heck did that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was just out of nowhere. She just came up, and with the sleight of the trick that they do with the sleight of hand of getting you to look somewhere else, flash of light or whatever, so you don't notice that, then it was really clever. But again, like I say, it was how she managed to do that all the time. That was quite good.
The cast, showed their versatilities really well, and I think it's hard to pinpoint one person, but pinpoint. And I think Julia did stand above the crowd with David, and I think, but that was the whole point of this production. You wanted the supporting cast were there to highlight that, and they did really well with that. Nobody overshadowed that part of this production, really.
Nicholas Rowe, he played Ralph. He played We are silly, but he gave a really good performance of Julia's husband, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Incidentally, the lead character based in the book and in the film was a male character, but Nottingham Playhouse decided to change it to a female role for this production.
Yeah, and I think it works, really. Go on. I
think it's, I I think it's one way of updating something.
I think for me, this role almost was almost like an androgynous role.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
In that
the story doesn't define gender.
No.
You know,
No.
It's not based on anything other than the story that it's trying to tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
And I think...
in fact, it probably benefits more with it being a female in the lead because the actual crime that she's going to commit is murder.
Yeah.
More men commit murder than women.
Yeah.
So it's more believable that a man in the original version could potentially do it. But for it to be the other way around now, for them to swap the gender so it's the female... That I don't know. Maybe there's something more in there, but because I've not read the book nor seen the film, because her partner cheated on her.
Yeah,
that's basically why she kills him, isn't it? Please don't just agree with me, just in case I get it wrong.
Yeah, because she got murderous thoughts. She got the murderous thoughts. That's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah. So she had murderous thoughts,
which meant she was pre-murder, and she was, I think the key.
But it turns out she did end up killing him because of the infidelity.
Exactly.
Which, actually, now thinking about it, is slightly a stereotypical viewpoint of because the man committed adultery in the relationship, that she wanted to commit, she killed him because of the affair. I think that's stereotypical now, actually.
Yeah, and I think...
Is that progressive? Or is that just throwing men under the bus? It's another one now to think of, isn't it?
I suppose, from a bigger perspective, a lot of these... films almost show all futuristic things where mostly it's male scientists, male it's a male dominated futuristic world, so this breaks down those barriers a little bit, and also to flip Minority Report over to change the gender role. I think they did it well in the sense that it didn't feel like they stuck on one perspective. I think it was, it just showed strength from this very clever woman.
Again, the lead character could be androgynous. It doesn't particularly matter who leads it, to be honest. It works either way. I just think, thinking about it now, maybe the wanting to murder someone because of the affair... is probably a little bit too weak of a reason.
I think it's not just that you've got the Fjord bit as
this is like a double cross.
This is a partnership on the actual. It wasn't just about the affair.
Do you know anything about the show, the play?
Well, what I was going to say is, it's not just about the affair. It's the fact that he is willing to let her see her fate through the system that she's created, and he was quite willing to step back and let her be put away, because she'd been identified as pre-murder, to save face. So it wasn't just about the affair and things like that. He was very willing to just let her be sent to the fiery depths.
Right, let's talk about the technical side of things.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Come on then.
Why me?
What are we doing? Technical.
Yes.
What the tech?
Do you want to talk about props and costumes?
Yeah, we haven't done that yet, have we?
No.
Those two props and costumes, Stephen.
Go on then.
So, Stephen, what did you think about props and costumes?
All right. Bit boring.
Bit grey.
To be honest, with the costumes, they felt very slimline, and I think one guy was wearing a pinstripe suit as well, so everything clearly comes round. I don't think the costumes were that futuristic either. They were very much contemporary, stylish, yet simple.
Yeah, there was like subdued colour palette, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, nothing... I believe Julia was wearing more silver, greyish, shiny suited material.
With a tinge of Doctor Who. Jodie Foster style.
Jodie
Foster, sorry. No.
Jodie Whittaker.
Jodie Whittaker. So I think it was more... She was very much rocking the whole
Incidentally,
Doctor Who look, really.
When you mentioned that and the whole... how this has been produced, it did come across a little bit Red Ellen with the whole rattling through it sort of a thing. We do like to drop that one in.
Every now and again.
But yeah, the costumes were quite.
Yeah, and the ensemble cast
acceptable.
as well were wearing, things like hoodies and jogging bottoms, but then almost your
They were wearing a sort of guerrilla-esque attire.
grey coats and things that just
resembled rebels.
They disappeared into the background, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing. They became a part of the palette behind the main characters almost. It's people moving around, but they weren't meant to be fully seen.
Part of the cityscape.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think David had a different approach to the costume.
That was almost like Marvel-esque, wasn't it? It was like,
Yeah, very much like a catsuit, suit sort of a thing.
Yeah.
If I can remember rightly.
Yeah, with like piped edges and things that was just like...
That was more futuristic, but that was a Series AI sort of a 3D representation. So that was... it was sort of the most futuristic.
And there was a lot of
costumes.
Like the underground stuff was more khaki. There was like a lot of, it was almost like your old military, ex-military sort of wear that people had have bought to sort of disappear into camo gear and stuff like that. And I think that was used a lot when they in that world. But that was a bit it really, and in the sense of and I suppose the set wise there was items on a futuristic desk, so it'd be bespoke made curved perspex desk, and then there was like bucket chairs that had got wing tops, almost 60s style, but to evoke that modern, like sort of futuristic look, really.
Yeah. And the props, they were there wasn't a great deal of props, to be fair. A lot of it was set pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't really think of.
Well, it's like there was a coat stand. There was a few. I think it was more.
There was a chair that came in where she took her shoes off, or she had to. There was the bit where she had to take the little device. Yeah. Was it the precog chip in her brain or something that goes to the computer system
pre-murder
or whatever it is? Yeah. She had to literally get her scapula out and
get
that is a word, isn't it? And to get rid of she had to draw blood or whatever. So we had a bit of blood on the t-shirt and cuffs and stuff. But yeah, that was a disturbing bit.
I suppose the most set drapes we saw was really in the office space and the underground bit. Really, in the sense of set drapes and setting the scene in a way. Everything else was very much bare stage and using what was a lot of the things in some of the places were for Julia to put items of clothing onto rather than actually have main props, and it was just minimal.
In a home there was a kitchenette scene where I think she might have had a drink or something there, so that was a little bit of a prop there. But then when it was the office, it was like a computer desk and a typewriter type pad or something.
Yeah, but everything felt stuck down and only to be in the background rather than be used almost.
Yeah, I'm struggling now to think of a prop that actually she carried. Yeah, I can't.
I know there's a brain.
A brain? Oh, yeah, in the bucket.
Yeah.
Brain in the bucket.
Yeah.
Well, we've all been there.
Regularly in the bucket. More like the gutter. Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the tech is this?
Tech-wise, I mean, there was a lot of pulleys and systems involved to create this space. Some were manual, some were automatic. So there's a lot that could go wrong, to be fair. But I didn't really notice anything go wrong on that night that we saw it. And lighting wise, I mean, we talked earlier about when somebody had been identified as committing pre-murder. they used lasers, the laser light from above that actually had zoned areas on the floor that actually got smaller and smaller, so that person got trapped in a sort of in a pyramid of light almost, and they did that really well, where you felt like that world was closing in on that person.
Well, was it like a cube of white light come down, or they were on the? Was it a light from
it was
above
from
coming
above
down?
the floor as well.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
it looked like there was a cube light from the bottom that she stood in or something.
Yeah,
unless
it was just
mistaken.
zoned area. It just moved in on the floor.
Yeah, but then it went red, didn't it?
Yeah, it did go red. Yeah, to signify that they've been trapped almost.
And it went hand in hand with the music. That made it more like the tension.
Yeah.
And the dramatic piece flare up.
Yeah, and I think as well we talked about the taxi scene, the travel scene, and the police scene.
In the AI car.
In the AI car, and that looked, it was to signify the moving and the transporting of that across that world, and I think that was done really well. Yes, it was quite simple in its design, but it actually looked, effective for those scenes. You felt like they were travelling around, and all the walls and the projections they used, because they used projections on the side of these screens that are all the way down the stage to just show movement, and a lot of the projections weren't very visible that there were specific images, but they used it to enhance the space really.
Fair amount of strobe lighting as well, and LEDs everywhere.
Yeah, there was. I mean, God forbid anything go wrong in this production, because I mean, the other thing I would say is in the underground part.
Their electric bills. Hard.
Yeah, I mean the underground part, they had multiple screens used, and one thing I would say is there was a lot of attention to detail on the projections and the creation of those projections.
Yeah, I was going to say that
the news articles, or the things that they used to actually. They had some news reporters or people interviewing and things like that, and that really enhanced the feel to this. It gave you the level of.
It gave you a lot more detail than
Yes.
they perhaps needed to.
Yeah.
But I felt it sort of. It needed that, actually.
Yeah.
And even if it went unnoticed by a lot of people.
It felt like a film set. It's not easy to pull
exactly,
off.
Yes. It really did add to the. All those extra little details. It really does make it worth it.
Yeah, because it instantly gives you that
believability. I think.
And the other and it expands the world as well, because what you see on those screens makes you feel like we're actually in this.
Because they could have just put like a poster over the thing saying just something random.
Yeah, exactly. But to actually go to that level and then
have things moving on the screen as well,
and then intertwine that with the appearance of David to be part of that world, and then things like it helped create that the wider world than what was on stage.
It helped to create the futuristic world.
Of course it did, yeah, because you saw that through that lens almost.
Because even if they did go for the cheap and cheerful poster,
yeah,
that's not necessarily giving 2050, is it?
No, it put you in that world. It put you in the
and also I'd say the use of mobile phones and those like tablets, they were all like clear.
Yeah, they were clear. They basically were clear pieces of perspex to imitate a mobile phone of the future, where they'd got hidden LEDs within them, so they glowed when they were being used. You didn't need to see what was on the screen because it was enough. But the tablet and the mobile phone that they used, it just gave you that futuristic look as well. So it wasn't just what you were seeing on screens; it was the other elements that helped.
And as for the sound effects, the bit that was most noticeable was when Julia had to break out of the AI car and she had to kick out the window.
Yes.
Because you had some smashing of glass there.
Yeah. There was no glass in the window.
No, there was no glass, no. But the whole kicking and stuff. So the sound effects were there on cue to support the action as well.
Yeah, and it also, before that, the glass was smashed or whatever, the the sound effects were right for, say, the travelling scenes where you felt like it was an electric motor that was travelling through, rather than so you got the whirs and the hisses and you got the right weather sounds when there was rain. Everything felt right. It all the outside traffic and the movement and all those things felt right. All the recordings were done really well as well, which can let something down if they don't spend the time getting the recordings right. Then that can just break the mood completely. Yeah,
because it's not just about the incidental music; it's about the atmospheric.
Of course, it is.
Music in terms of the soundscape.
Yeah.
Because the incidental music is there to support the narrative and get the emotions feeling and the pace and the adrenaline pumping. But the realistic sounds and what that world in that time zone would be like and stuff, that needs to be embedded there as well.
Yeah, really does.
They did a really good job on that one.
And now it's time for our Rewind Rewatch.
I would watch this again, to be fair. I think I couldn't really single any scene out because it was so fast paced.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I mean, I wouldn't even say this is a specific scene I need to see again. That, how some plays they have really good scenes that you just want to keep watching over and over or whatever, because there's a certain actor or the way they performed it or whatever. This didn't have that.
No. Now,
that's not to throw a negative spin on it. I just think the whole show in a production in total just I'd have more enjoyment from it from watching it again.
Yeah.
And it's not one that I'd have to leave a lot more time before I go and see it again either.
No, exactly.
I would gladly watch this again if it was up.
Yeah. I think you'd pick up other bits that you didn't see in the first time.
Yeah, because you're taking too much.
Yeah. There's so much to take in at once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say, call this a show?
We sat on the front row for this production, and from the front row to the back row, you would have enjoyed it because you can. I think I forgot to mention it earlier, but I think you can see through things.
What if you're in the side rows?
Well,
you wouldn't have
but
enjoyed
if you're on the front few rows, you can start seeing the cracks sometimes between when you're watching a production like this.
You can't help when the actors bend down.
No, exactly. But Phil McCracken wasn't here. I think it's very easy for a production that's meant to evoke the future and show you that world, that if you can see the lines not blurred, then it takes you out of that world. Whereas this made you just felt like you were there. You felt like you'd walked into a Doctor Who futuristic set. You felt like you were going with everything that was happening around it. So, hats off to them for being confident in doing this production. I know it must have took a lot of work to get it like this, and I can imagine there's been a lot of decisions made to create this, but they did it confidently, and it was well written and well directed, and well put together by the technical team.
Yeah, I think this is a strong play and production as a whole, and I think it's a good concept.
Yeah.
As well,
because we were a bit apprehensive before we'd seen it, in a way, because we didn't know how it was going to be pulled off, really.
Yeah, so as I say, it's a great production. However, even though it is very Orwellian and the concept is quite prevalent in today's society, it was a really good show and quite nifty at just having a one act as well, so it didn't drag on too long, and I enjoyed that. So this is definitely one that I think people should go and watch and enjoy. Well then, please, Richard, for the Minority Report. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a fantastically futuristic feast and 1 being a thought crime to ever conceive the show, what's it going to be?
I'm going to give it a 9.
I'm going to give it a 9.
So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? for a standing ovation. What will it be?
I give this a standing ovation.
I give this a pleasant applause.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Minority Report. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
And opinions.
on many theatrical delights in future episodes. If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.
Minority Report. Minority. Written by David Haig and based on the short story by Philip K. Dick. I did well though because I stopped. This is a Nottingham.
In 2050, neuroscientist Dame Julia Anderton. In 2050, neuroscientist. In 2050, neuroscientist James Julia Anderson.
James Julia.
I knew I was going to go wrong then. In 2050, neuroscientist In 20.
Just your mic's a bit. It's just dropped a little bit low. That's all right.
In 2050, neuroscientist Dame Julia Anderton is about to launch the next. I can't speak now. I have to do it again. She's in a race against time to save her own self from her own self. She's in a race against time. Oh, I fucking lost it now. Oh, it's windy up in here.
It's a windy day. I've just realised these look more like squashed pugs than they do anything.
Yeah. Put those pigs away.
They're not pigs, they're lions. Stop lying.
Could have fooled me. You might make a lion.
We're talking about tech.
Well, you need to be talking about tech, but you just filled your face with a pig. Hope you're getting the good nutrients out of that sweet.
I am.
What are you on your phone for?
What are you doing this week?
Are you still recording?
Early or late?
One afternoons.
Oh,
Why?
unfortunate, it's in Leicester Monday, Tuesday.
Oh,
So I'm doing Monday, Tuesday. Unfortunate, that's very unfortunate.
very unfortunate. This is one I definitely need to report. I know that sounds bad. But very appropriate.
Very appropriate.
I was going to carry on, but I didn't know what else to say.
I'm going to give it a 9.
Why are you copying me?
I'm not. I was going to give this one a 9 anyway.
I give this a pleasant applause.
Why didn't you copy me this time? We are ready now.
It was such a long time.